Okay.
Basically, they have this version used by Disney.
All right. So, well, having done this yesterday, we know how this goes. How many drummers are in the house?
Il y a combien de batteurs?
Okay, how many musicians? That's no slight to drummers, because I'm a drummer. I'm sorry. I should have asked that first. Okay, so there's lots of musicians here. All right. So this is the Jean Lake Project. Oh, I'm sorry. To my internet crowd. Well, are these people in Paris?
Yes.
They're in Paris. Where?
In Marne-la-Vallée, near Disneyland.
They're in Disneyland.
It's university.
Oh, university. All right. Okay. So they can hear me and we can hear them. All like that, right? All right. So, all right. So, are there any questions about musicians here, or no questions off the bat? Okay. Well, first of all, okay, we got David Gilmour on guitar. Did I do that? Reggie Washington on the bass. Nick Rolfe on keyboards. Yeah. Okay, the first tune we played was a tune I titled Red Zone. And then the second tune was called Jumpin' Bad, because we was jumping bad. So, what's that? No. Okay. I have no French. Should you?
Le premier morceau qu'ils ont joué, c'était Zone Rouge, Red Zone, et le deuxième, Jumping Bad, jumping, sauter, et bad. Help me there. Aidez-moi. Jumping Bad. Ça pourrait donner quoi en français?
Entorse de cheville.
Okay, so, do you guys have any questions? No. All right.
We have a question.
Reggie has you have a question?
Yes, to answer that question with a question. Why don't you have any questions?
Why don't you have any questions? This is an exchange. This is a workshop. So we're hoping to,
What are you here for?
Only to find the groove, maybe from the head or more from the heart.
I'm sorry, one more time.
How do you define the groove? It's more from the head, intellect, or from the heart?
Comment est-ce que vous définissez
Someone
le
asked the
groove?
question,
Plus
is the
de la
groove
tête.
from the intellect, is it from the head, or is it
Okay.
from the heart? Both. You know,
Les deux.
there are some things that you have to learn,
Il y a des choses qu'il faut apprendre,
and after you learn them, then,
après
you
qu'on les
know,
apprend,
and that's the intellectual part.
et ça c'est la partie intellectuelle,
Then you inject your heart into it.
et après on y met son cœur dedans.
You know, it becomes a tool or like an alphabet.
Ça
You
devient
know, you
un
can use
outil, un
learn different
alphabet.
rhythms, and they become like, you know, a part of your tools that you use to express yourself.
Ça fait partie de votre boîte à outils et vous l'utilisez pour vous exprimer.
So, but groove, you know, we did a workshop yesterday, and we were talking about groove, the
Et là,
anatomy
ils ont
of the
fait
groove.
un atelier où ils parlaient du groove.
Reggie, you know, say something. This is kind of your this is your title.
C'est son rayon.
I'm bringing you in here while I get my content together.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. Since we are all musicians,
Nous sommes tous des musiciens,
we've all listened to music,
on écoute tous de la musique,
and we are what we hear.
et nous sommes ce que nous entendons.
You know, some people are more than others because they've played or listened to more music.
Certaines personnes plus que d'autres parce qu'ils écoutent encore plus de musique.
Between this band, we have many different genres of music.
Dans ce groupe, il y a représenté beaucoup de genres de musique.
Some are the same, and others are different.
Certains sont semblables, d'autres
Yeah.
très différents.
We're all from different parts of the United States.
Ils sont tous d'endroits différents des États-Unis.
Boston, Cambridge, Massachusetts, St. Louis, Missouri, Seattle, Washington, and I'm from New York City. We've listened to the same music, but
Nous écoutons la même musique.
sometimes when we were little, we had 45s.
Mais parfois, quand on était petit, donc ils avaient les 45 tours,
The popular tune on the East Coast for me and Dave could be side A.
le morceau à la mode pouvait être la face A sur la côte Est.
For Gene, it could be side B.
Pour Gene, ça pouvait être la
You
face
know,
B.
and for Nick, it could be both.
Et pour Nick, ça pouvait être les deux.
But it depends. And when you listen, you know, it's
Ça dépend.
the groove is so personal. I
Le
get
groove, c'est
questions
quelque chose
from
de très
people.
personnel.
I get
Une
questions from
question.
people who ask, where do you get your groove?
D'où est-ce que vous chopez le groove?
I get it from the music that I've learned, the music that I've played.
Je prends de la musique que j'ai écoutée, de la musique que je joue,
You know, the great musicians that I play with, I learn.
des grands musiciens avec qui j'ai joué et j'apprends.
This is why this is such a cooperative. It's a very sensitive thing. It's very personal.
Quelque chose de coopératif, de sensible, personnel.
That's why it's very important when you guys get a band to like the people in your band.
C'est pour ça que c'est très important si vous formez un groupe d'aimer les gens avec qui vous formez ce
So,
groupe.
and it's the best way to create, you know, beautiful music.
C'est la meilleure façon de créer de la belle musique.
We're working on it. We love each other.
On
We're
y travaille.
working on this now. So, with that, questions?
Des questions?
You write all the music, or when you play, you use music and after you improvise?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Do you write beforehand all the music you play, or do you base a lot of your music on improvisation?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm trying to synthesize. Yeah, I compose the music first, and while I'm composing, I'm thinking and factoring in the improvisation. You know.
Il écrit la musique, mais il sait déjà qu'il va y avoir des endroits où va intervenir l'improvisation.
But also within the music, there is
au
room
sein de la musique, il y a
for
de
the
la,
musicians to interpret, have their own
il y a de
interpretation,
la place pour que les musiciens aient leur propre
and maybe
interprétation.
and inject into the music, you know, what it is
Injecter
they feel it needs or what it is they want to say
Ce qu'ils
over
ont
the
envie de
composition.
dire ou qu'ils sentent qu'il y a besoin.
You know, of course, it's my song, so it's within reason.
C'est quand même son projet, donc faut que ça reste raisonnable, mais
All right. Well, I want to. Are there any more questions? Yes.
Savoir si les compositions, enfin l'écriture vient déjà de l'improvisation, provient de l'improvisation, ou c'est déjà écrit.
Does your writing come from improvisation, from sessions that you had before, or is it really something that you create?
I can answer that. I can answer that. It comes from it comes from a sensibility. I mean, I'm someone that likes R&B a lot, and as a drummer, then I sort of moved into checking out jazz music.
Ça vient de sa
From there.
sensibilité. Comme musicien, il aime beaucoup
So-
le R&B.
So, in terms of composing, those are my sensibilities that I bring into, you know, those are the ideas that are sort of swimming around my head, and that's what my imagination is working with when I sit down to
Avec quoi son
compose.
imagination travaille,
You know.
il va composer avec ça.
Does that make sense? Yes.
So to me, composition and is improvisation slowed down.
Pour lui, la composition, c'est comme de l'improvisation au ralenti.
And improvisation is composition sped up.
Et l'improvisation, c'est de la composition accélérée.
It's in the moment, like when we're improvising, we're composing on the spot.
Au moment où on improvise, c'est comme composer sur le champ.
And of course, it comes from years of learning scales, chords,
Et ça vient d'années de pratique, d'apprentissage.
practicing, and same with composition too.
La même chose, bien sûr, avec la composition.
Yeah. I would agree. No, you're right. I mean, like the first tune we played,
Le premier morceau qu'ils ont joué,
sort of the thing, I wrote that on the keyboard because I think I'm a keyboard player sometimes.
il l'a écrit sur le clavier.
As opposed
Parfois,
to
il
say
imagine
writing
qu'il y a un
from
joueur.
the drums, which I probably need to do more of. But yeah.
Pas fait sur sa batterie.
So that first composition, I mean, I just sat down to speak to what David said, which is composition is sort of, you know, it's improvisation slowed down.
Il s'est juste assis là
I sat down and I was just playing what came out of my spirit
et
at
il a
that
joué ce
moment,
qui sortait de son
and kind of what I like. I mean, I only know so much when I'm playing the piano.
Et pourtant,
So-
c'est pas son.
So when I sat down, I'm playing,
son
a lot of
instrument
times for me, I'm playing stuff that my spirit wants to hear, you know. And then from there, I sort of, you know, I build up the composition from there.
Et dans ces cas-là, il joue ce que son esprit veut entendre et il construit sur cette fondation sa composition.
I mean, but also I don't want to take away the idea that there is some thought to it. There is some.
Je veux pas non plus enlever l'idée qu'il y a une certaine réflexion derrière
But like David
ce
said, you
procédé.
could define that as just composition being slowed down even further.
Mais c'est vraiment cette idée
It's
de
like, wait a
ralentissement
minute,
du
here it
processus.
comes, there it is.
Et voilà,
You know?
ça vient et ça arrive.
So there is some thought, without a doubt.
Il y a un processus intellectuel, sans doute,
But,
mais
oh, I'm sorry, wait.
No,
I'm
go
waiting
ahead.
for you. Yeah, so, yeah, I just wanted to say that with that tune, there is, I mean, for me, writing, it's simply that. It's exactly that process, you know. But I wanted to talk about myself as a drummer first. I guess maybe you guys could also introduce yourselves. I mean, I was saying yesterday, so we did a workshop yesterday, that for me, I was always, you know, someone who wanted to play a lot of different styles, a lot of different genres.
quelqu'un qui aime jouer plein de styles différents.
So when I was in college at Berklee College of Music in Boston,
Quand il était au
that was sort of,
l'université à Boston.
that was my goal, to be able to try, to play a lot of different
C'était
genres,
son but.
And so I was
de jouer
hanging out with the
plein de
jazz
genres
guys
différents.
a little bit, some of the fusion guys a little bit, But for me personally, I'm coming out of more of an R&B vibe. So,
Vibe, c'est
so
le
but
R&B.
it simply was just a jumping off point, It was just a reference
C'est
point,
c'est un point de référence.
Because I have to say, when I'm playing all these other genres,
Quand il joue les
it still informs me, the spirit of that music, of R&B music. To me, I mean, I could simplify it and distill it to a culture, but we just talk about the music. I still use that to inform me in a lot of different situations, no matter what it is.
Mais c'est vraiment le point de référence, le R&B.
So that's pretty much was my goal at that time when I was learning and practicing a lot.
C'était donc son but à cette époque-là, quand il apprenait.
And from there, from college, I went on and played with some
de
R&B groups,
l'université,
which you guys probably don't know of. And then
il a créé des groupes, il a joué dans des groupes.
well, I played with Michel and Cello, which is kind of coming out of that spoken word rap kind of thing. And I worked with this R&B group called Surface, which is more like pop. It's like pop R&B. And then,
les noms de groupe, là, parce que moi j'ai un peu de mal.
and then from there, I got a recommendation. I found out from David there was a auditions for Steve Coleman. I don't know if you guys familiar with that name. He's a saxophone player. So, and we played with Steve at the same time. What, maybe from '92? For me, it was from '92 to '96. I played with Steve from '92 to '96, and I was working with Michel and Cello at the same time. So, and I also worked with another saxophone player, Henry Threadgill. Anybody know that name? And that's, wow. How would you describe Threadgill's music? Eclectic. Yeah, it's very, very eclectic. That is, it's true. But I guess I asked the question because what downbeats, they call it like neoclassical. They put that
music
term.
with an attitude.
That's true. But actually, I'm bringing this up because this band I work with Threadgill, with Henry Threadgill, it was called Very Very Circus.
C'est ce groupe avec qui il jouait et était appelé. What was the name?
Very Very Circus.
Oh, Very
like a
Very
circus.
Circus. Très très cirque. Je translate literally. Je traduis littéralement.
And one of the interesting things for me about playing in that band
chose intéressante de jouer avec cet homme,
is it was the instrumentation.
C'était l'instrumentation.
There was like two rhythm sections.
Il y avait
if
deux
you will.
sections de rythme.
There was a lead player, there was a French horn player, sax player,
Un joueur de saxophone.
the harmonic player with guitar, two guitars, and two tuba players.
Et deux joueurs de tuba.
So when Henry wrote for this band,
Quand il écrivait pour ce groupe,
he kind of
ensemble,
conceived it like that sometimes. On certain compositions, he conceived it as like two different bands that was playing over the same music.
comme s'il écrivait pour deux qui jouaient ensemble la même musique.
And a lot of the times he would give me the score
Et souvent, il lui donnait la partition
to sort of, let me make up my own parts in terms of what I wanted to react to.
lui
Because
laisser
there was so much information.
jouer pour lui laisser décider quelle allait être sa place, tellement il y avait déjà d'informations pour qu'il trouve sa place dans ce qu'il lui avait donné.
But I will say this about the music that he wrote, it was challenging. I remember
La
initially
musique qu'il écrivait était toujours un challenge.
that, all the musicians in the band, we were like, okay, how we're gonna play this music,
Les
it's really
musiciens
hard
dans
to
le groupe
describe.
se regardaient souvent en disant voilà, comment est-ce qu'on va faire là.
But for me, after playing, listening to the music, I would make up my own drum part of what I wanted to
Écouter
react
et
to.
puis fait sa partie.
And a lot of times, Henry
Et
would
très souvent,
say,
Henry leur disait,
he would just give me a vibe. Sometimes he would dance and say, this is the spirit of,
il lui
how
donnait
I
une
want you to
indication.
interpret this music.
Des fois, c'était
And he
juste
would do it with dance sometimes.
danser
And a lot of times,
pour lui donner
he would do
l'indication
it like
de ce qu'il voulait.
he would it was like he was James Brown. That was the vibe he would give me. But the music sounded nothing like James Brown.
Certaines fois, voilà, il a donné l'indication, ça va être comme James Brown, mais même si la musique était pas du tout celle-là.
And a lot
C'était l'esprit.
A lot of the compositions were, that he written, he would express them that way. They were very impressionistic, where
c'est très impressionniste.
Where he had this tune called King Kong.
Et par exemple, il y avait
it was a ballad.
Qui s'appelait King Kong, alors que c'était une ballade.
He had no drum parts, and he told me, he says,
n'y avait pas de
I want you to think about what King Kong thought about when he fell off the Empire State Building. That's what you make your part.
Il lui a dit, je veux que tu penses à ce que King Kong a pensé quand il est tombé du haut de l'Empire State Building. Et ça va être ça ta partie batterie.
So, so that was a unique situation for me, given that, he was allowing me to sort of, really inject my imagination.
De vraiment amener son imagination en tant que batteur, en tant que musicien. Et d'amener ça dans la musique.
It was just that open, but
c'était si ouvert que ça.
So that was a really challenging experience.
C'était une expérience, un véritable défi.
Very different from, say, working, with Michel and Cello, which is more.
C'était très différent de travailler avec.
I guess more pop, relatively speaking, like pop music. So. And then from there, I worked a bit with Joe Zawinul from Weather Report. You guys know that name? So that's pretty much it. In the '90s, I played some pop records like D'Angelo's records. There's an R&B singer, Maxwell. No? Maxwell. And then I started in the late '90s. I started working with David Samuel, the alto players, like what they call soft jazz. Yeah, anyone know that name?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've been doing that. I was doing that from '98 till 2010, and I still play with them every now and then today.
Parfois, ils jouent encore avec eux.
And but I want to say one thing. I want to pass it off. You guys want to introduce yourselves? Talk about, huh?
Sure.
Okay. So Nick Ross can maybe talk about himself a little bit here. I just wanted to let you know where I'm coming from. No?
My name's Nick. I started very young as a classical piano player.
Il a démarré très jeune comme joueur de piano classique.
Yeah, my parents decided that it was important to play an instrument, so at first grade, my present was piano lessons and some books, and I hated it. I hated it. My mom used to set a timer in our kitchen for half an hour every day, and I had to practice for half an hour, and it seemed like forever when you're little.
Et dans la cuisine, il y avait donc il a eu comme cadeau, en entrant à l'école, il a eu comme cadeau des leçons de piano et des livres, et il a détesté tout ça. Et dans la cuisine, il y avait un timer, un truc, un minuteur. Merci. Pour donc régler sur une demi-heure, et pendant une demi-heure, il devait pratiquer tous les jours et il détestait ça.
But I used to look for her. I used to creep like this. And then creep in and turn the timer. So I had less time. But
en douce, il essayait de.
So I played basically classical music all the way up into high school, what we call high school. So
jusqu'au lycée, il a joué
until I was about 18 years old.
Jusqu'à 18 ans.
And then music, it actually really turned me off of music because it's not something that I wanted to do. So as soon as I had an opportunity to quit, I quit.
La musique, c'était pas du tout quelque chose qu'il voulait faire.
But the music is inside of me.
Et la musique était en lui.
I figured I'll go work. I'll go be a construction worker and make money.
Et il a pensé qu'il allait travailler dans la construction, gagner de l'argent.
So I decided, okay, I'm going to go apply at a music school where I grew up in Seattle, Washington, called
finalement, la
College of
musique
the Arts.
l'a rattrapé et puis il s'est inscrit dans une école de musique à Seattle où il a grandi.
And it is today, and it was then kind of the premier music school in Seattle. And I thought, let me go see what I can do. Let me go audition, and I got in.
Et c'était vraiment la meilleure école de musique de Seattle. Et il s'est dit, tiens, allons, voilà, petit défi, allons-y et voir ce que ça donne. Et puis il a auditionné et ça a été bon, il a été accepté.
But it was a jazz school, and I
C'était une
didn't
école
know
de jazz.
anything about jazz, so I
Je connaissais pas le
was
jazz.
really faking it. I was pretending a lot.
Et il bluffait beaucoup.
But I learned something very, very important there, which was how important it is to listen to music.
Et il a appris combien c'est important d'écouter de la musique.
Because I grew up in a very eclectic household, so I had sisters and brothers that were much older than me, so I heard a huge variety of different styles of music that were inside of me that I did not know until I went to this school and started being put on the spot to play other
plein de
things.
sortes de musique, et il s'était pas rendu compte à quel point ça allait être très important quand tout d'un coup dans cette école, il s'est rendu compte qu'il avait déjà entendu plein de choses, et là il a compris toutes ces influences.
So when you ask about is it the head or the heart, what I discovered here was that,
Donc quand vous avez
as
demandé
Gene
si
said, it
c'était la
is
tête
both.
ou le cœur,
Because it took the technique from the college, the repetition, it took the technique to be able to express what was in my heart, but I needed a vehicle to be able to execute it, to be able to play what I'm hearing.
là il a dit que c'était les deux
So,
parce qu'il
That's
faut
what the
la
school taught me.
technique et qu'apprend l'école pour pouvoir exprimer ce que ressent le cœur avec cette musique.
So as soon as I found this, I had all this music inside that I wanted
Et dès que j'ai
to
compris
access
et
more. I
que j'ai
figured
trouvé
New
que
York
j'avais
was the
cette,
place
qu'il
to
avait
go.
cette
So
musique en lui, il a voulu exprimer.
I applied to a couple of different schools and
Et
got accepted to a couple and decided to go to the new school, which is in the West Village. Have you guys heard of the new school? Yeah.
Et
So
s'inscrire donc dans
it was
il a
an
été accepté
amazing
dans
experience
la
for
New
me.
School, et ça a été une expérience extraordinaire.
Because in New York City there is
Parce qu'à New
such
York,
a huge, dense population
il y a
of
une telle
ferocious musicians.
Population de musiciens
Young,
féroces.
I mean, guys that were younger than me that were monsters on whatever
des gars plus
instrument.
jeunes que lui qui étaient des super cracks.
And you had access to teachers who
Il y
were
avait accès à
the
des
legends
professeurs,
of whatever music you were trying to do. Those were your teachers.
véritables
You had
légendes
access to
dans
these
chaque
guys.
type de musique que vous essayez de faire.
So being in that environment,
Et
the
d'être dans
growth
cet
is
environnement,
exponential. The growth.
on
is
progresse
high, so-
de façon exponentielle.
And the other important thing I learned is
Et
that
d'autres choses importantes que j'ai
how
appris,
valuable it is to surround yourself with
combien
musicians
c'est
who are much better
important
than you.
d'être entouré de musiciens qui jouent nettement mieux que soi-même.
Yeah, for me that was very important because I
Moi,
felt
ça a été
like
très important.
it pushed me very hard
Parce
to
que ça
try
m'a
to catch
poussé
up, and
très,
here I am right now
fort
with musicians
pour
much better than me.
les
It's
rattraper
the same situation. You surround yourself
et
with
être
people who challenge
dans
you.
cette situation où il y a un véritable défi permanent.
So out of college, I was very lucky to get
Et en sortant
some gigs that were very important for the music. I was
l'université,
I knew how to play a lot of different
chance
styles, but jazz had
de-
become my thing now at the school. So
d'avoir
I started touring with
gigs,
Benny Golson and Leonard Harper and
des
Reggie
concerts,
Workman
des occasions
and
de
Cecil
jouer,
McBee.
où il a rencontré des gens vraiment importants pour lui.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where did you have?
I got lost with the gigs you played
Okay.
when you said.
So right out of college, I was fortunate to be able to work with some great jazz players
Travailler avec des
who
grands
I grew
musiciens
up
de
listening
jazz
to
et qu'il
as
a-
I started to get into jazz. I shouldn't say grew up, but as I got into school.
Voilà, des gens dont il avait écouté les disques et qu'il avait marqué.
So some of the first gigs I got right out of college were I got to tour and record with Benny Golson.
Parmi le
And I got
premier plan qu'il a trouvé en sortant de l'université, ça a été des enregistrements avec Benny Golson
And Reggie Workman,
et
great
Reggie
bass player,
Workman,
and Cecil McBee, another great bass player, Eddie Gomez, another kind of fusion but bass player, and from there I got a chance to move into some other genres.
et il a eu l'opportunité d'aller dans d'autres genres de musique.
And I got a chance to work with people like Lauryn Hill and Amel LaRue and Liz Wright, and it just kind of being in New York is kind of like once you get on a gig like that, you know,
Et d'être à New
you can
York,
get passed around. You kind of are entered into a different thing.
quand on est à
you
New
know.
York et qu'on commence à avoir trouvé les bons plans et que ça commence à bien se passer, c'est un réseau où les choses continuent de se passer comme ça.
But to say all this, what was most important to me was to be able to touch as many different types of music as possible, both to satisfy
Et
my heart and my
toujours
soul.
la chose la plus importante pour lui, ça a été la possibilité de toucher à un maximum de styles de musique différents pour satisfaire son cœur
But also to work,
et son âme.
to be able to work and make a living.
Et
You have to be able to
aussi,
play a lot
du
of
coup,
different styles.
pour être capable de gagner sa vie, en disant qu'il était capable de jouer un grand nombre de sortes de musique et du coup d'ouvrir plus de portes.
Yeah, and so to finish it off, for me, I stay a student of the music until I stop breathing. Until the day life is over,
Il se
it's
définit
constant
comme
learning curve.
un étudiant en musique jusqu'à sa dernière respiration.
And I've noticed, you know, hopefully I have a long life ahead of me, but I've noticed that no matter what level of musicians I have come into contact with, I've always learned something from them. So
N'importe quel musicien qu'il rencontre, quel que soit son niveau, il y a toujours dans l'échange quelque chose à apprendre.
I felt like the most important thing in moving forward is to maintain an open
Et
mind
de
and
maintenir
no ego.
un esprit
No
ouvert
ego,
et
open
pas
mind.
d'ego.
You're good to go.
Et dans ces cas-là, c'est bon, on peut y aller.
So thank you for listening.
Merci d'avoir écouté.
Okay, so first we'll do the subdivision by 7 in 7.
Donc en premier, on fait cette division en 7.
So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 5, 6, 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's top. 4, 6, 7, 2, 2. 5, 6, 7, 2. Right, so his line here, I'll sing, was boom, ding, da bodum, boom, da bodum, boom, da bodum, boom, ding, da bodum, boom, da bodum, boom, da bodum, boom, ding, da bodum, boom, oh, bodum, boom, da bodum, boom, so that's the shorter phrase.
Ça, c'est la phrase courte.
And then there's a long phrase, which is 10 and a half.
Qui est 10 et
2,
demi.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right. Right. Okay. Keep going, Reggie. Okay. So when you're improvising, you have these rhythms to sing in your head, to internalize.
Quand vous improvisez, il faut avoir ces rythmes dans votre tête pour les internaliser,
That you can play off of.
pour les jouer souvent.
And then you also have this line as well.
Vous avez cette ligne de
Right.
basse.
So when I'm playing my drum beat,
Et quand je joue,
I'm trying to sing this line in my head and play
et il essaye de jouer cette ligne dans sa tête. Et
to and also really I want to internalize it so that
il veut vraiment l'internaliser.
when someone is soloing over it,
Quand quelqu'un fait
I can interact with it
et quand quelqu'un fait un solo dessus, ensuite il peut
and not
interagir
think
avec.
about 1, 2, 3,
Et
4,
pas
5,
penser
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, you know, it's too much to count.
Ça, ce serait trop à compter.
So we hold on to rhythms,
Donc on
which
reste
sometimes we
sur
call
le rythme.
claves because it sort of kind of marks the melody or the bass line or whatever phrase you want to sing in your head. You know, you can think of it as like a clave as a particular rhythm to internalize, or I can just learn this long phrase.
Vraiment ce rythme à internaliser ou apprendre toute cette longue phrase.
And of course, there are certain levels to this. I mean, many musicians are, can do this on a very high level.
Il y a différents niveaux à considérer. Certains musiciens peuvent le faire.
Like for instance, could you play your part, David? And you play it in section, or I'll sing it. He goes. Keep going. There's another part he has. There we go. So, with all of this rhythm going on,
Avec tous ces
it's
rythmes
all interlocking.
qui s'entrecroisent,
You want to, when playing this, and even when listening to music, you want to, as a musician, you want to understand the relationship.
en tant que musicien, il faut comprendre les liens qu'il y a entre tous ces rythmes.
And you will find that to be, I think, freeing when trying to improvise.
Et
Because
ça
you're
rend
now
libre quand on
improvising
improvise,
inside the music.
parce qu'on peut,
You are borrowing from the music
parce qu'on improvise au sein
and
de la
using
musique.
that as
On est né
inspiration
dans cette musique.
to view your improvisation, as well as your interaction. And if you can internalize this and somehow have these lines going in your head while you're doing this,
Si on arrive à internaliser tout ça, avoir vraiment
it
ça
can be
présent en
freeing.
tête,
I kind of
ça
liken it to like
libère.
walking and talking. When we're walking and talking,
Et
we're
c'est un
thinking
peu
about
comme
what? We're
marcher
thinking
et
about
parler en
what
même
we're
temps.
going to say. But we're still walking.
Et on réfléchit pas à ce qu'on dit,
Because
et
we've internalized
pourtant
that.
on est encore en train de marcher. Et,
So once you internalize that, now I can deal with
et une fois qu'on a
what the
internalisé
instrumentalists
ça,
have to
il
say in
arrive
the
à
music
gérer ce qui se
and
passe
keep
à
this
droite, à gauche,
phrase maybe going in my head,
et
or
garder
whatever phrase I
cette,
choose.
cette phrase dans sa tête, et ou alors rebondir sur une qu'il choisit.
So when we played this tune and we were improvising,
Et quand on joue ce morceau et qu'on improvise,
you can do this. If he wanted to improvise
vous pouvez faire ça.
over the 7, he could.
S'il voulait improviser sur la septième, il peut.
You can base it around that. Or
On
not.
peut le baser là-dessus.
You do the
ou
long
pas.
phrase. So, and everybody, I think, at their station probably has something, they have different information to deal with.
Et tout le monde, vu de son point de vue,
So
a
they're
différentes
probably
informations
experiencing the tune
à gérer, à
in
traiter.
terms of playing it
Et,
different from me.
et ce sera différent de ce que lui va faire.
So, I'm gonna add my part.
Et, et donc là, il va rajouter sa partition.
Okay, I'll tell you what, well, you guys do the 7 again. What's that?
No, like your straight thing.
Right.
The phrasing of the bass line feels like 2 bars of 4
Oh, it does.
and 1 bar of 5/8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
is really
it's
the
not,
same thing.
yeah, it makes it
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
De basse. Et là, je suis pas assez musicien, moi. Faut
Mesure de 4 et une mesure de 5 litres.
2 mesures de 4 et une mesure de 5/8. Merci.
So you guys hear what he said? He said it feels like 2 bars of what, 4/4 and a bar of 5/8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
We understand?
4,
2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So no, or you can do 4 and 6.5. Check it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and. However, you can do 4 and 13. Stupid.
Oh, you
but-
can do that, the other one.
4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
3 and
I
a
would
half.
recommend it.
3 and a half. 6 and a half.
No, it's 3 bars, 3.5.
3 bars, 3.5.
Oh, right. Okay.
3.5 and 6.5.
No, what you had yesterday, you had 1 bar 7/8 and a bar 7/4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
That's what you said yesterday.
One more half note in.
You know, you were saying, so he was saying you could
Oh,
subdivide it where there's a
Forget it,
bar.
I don't want to go back because I got the other one now.
Yeah, okay.
I got the other one.
You were saying it was a bar of 7/8 and then a bar of 7/4. You can think of it like, as long as it comes out to the same, you know.
Yeah.
And these things are basically tools to help you learn the music.
C'est juste des outils pour vous apprendre à mieux vous
But
apprendre
real
à-
quick, before we close out, are there any questions about what we're saying or what we just did? What you guys just clapped? Any questions? Any drummers? Drum questions? Speak now, because we're probably gonna get a whole bunch once I say we're done. No?
Vous utilisez souvent les claves?
Do you use often the keyboard?
Non, non,
I-
Les claves, ah,
Yes.
les-
Yes. Oui.
Oui, tout le temps. Every time?
For composing?
Yes.
A lot. Yeah. A lot. This last tune, I wrote on bass.
So.
It's in E.
Bass key.
Yeah, it's in bass key. So, yeah, I wrote it on bass.
Good
So-
bass player, by the way. Amazing bass player.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good,
Pisses
good
me
key-
off.
Good
Yeah.
keyboard player too. It's
Yeah.
important.
And with that, we will close out. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Thank you.